Welcome back to World Crisis Radio for our second hour, and keep up with everything at Tarpley.net, Tarpley.net, and from minute to minute at Webster G. Tarpley on Twitter. We are simply trying to digest the consequences. Obama's now got 5 wars going: Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Libya, Yemen. Yemen is now a war. Joint Special Operations Command operating there with the CIA. And as of the 20th of June, Obama is impeachment bait. If he's continuing to bomb Libya after the 20th of June, he must be impeached. And we put that call out to everybody. And we have very limited time, but we always want to keep up with the the anti-Obama revelations, the question of his constitutional inability to serve, which is the bedrock for the broad-based opposition that we need, that can basically everybody can agree on. And of course, for that, no better place to go than Philadelphia and Phil Berg, the guy who started it all on that fateful August 21st, 2008 at the Supreme Court. Phil, can you give us a quick summary, because we're pressed for time?
Sure, I know you are, and keep after Obama, he'll be up for impeachment. I'm not sure he can be impeached because I don't think he is legally in that office. Our website is obamacrimes.com. Nothing really new at this point. We're waiting for an expert report. Someone has commissioned, I've seen a couple, but someone that I have complete faith in has commissioned an expert report on the Obama birth certificate that they released about 3 weeks ago. I mean, just by looking at it, you can tell it's a forged document, but we're getting an expert to have so we can decide how to move on that next. I just can't believe the audacity of Obama to produce a document which is a fraud. I mean, it just shows that he's above everything. He thinks he's above everything. He can do whatever he wants to do. And look at I'll do a comparison here. Look at what's going on with Congressman Weiner from New York. Everyone wants to have an ethics investigation. They want him to resign and everything else. What he did is not good, but what Obama has done is 20 times, 100 times worse than that. Obama is a fraud. Obama is a phony. It's the biggest hoax against the United States of America. And members of Congress, I think, are on the verge of treason when they do not look into and hold hearings. If they would hold one hearing, the new Republican head of the committee now, Darrell Issa from California, if he would hold a hearing, Obama would be out of office. If the national papers, the top fold, would make this a big story, like investigating Obama, he'd be out of office. But they keep protecting him and protecting him and protecting him. And we're working on something. We're also working on something to raise some money right now, a substantial amount of money to ask for in effect, the deep throat regarding Obama. You know, who has the information? Because someone does. You know, we talk about Weiner could be in a position of being blackmailed. I think Obama has been in a position to be blackmailed for the last 2.5 years, and perhaps he is. And that's why he's done these unbelievable things to the detriment of all of us. So we have to stand firm, everyone out here. When the show's over, please go to obamacrimes.com. Send it on to everyone you knew. We're getting ready to file another lawsuit. We're looking for the expert on the birth certificate issue right now, the audacity of Obama to put up another phony document, and it's absurd. So I know you have many other things to do today. Thank you for having me on, and obamacrimes.com, and we'll be back with you next week.
Good. That will be interesting, Phil, to get the final word on that forgery, because that opens up a whole new thing. And as you've often said, it's what you do is one thing; it's the cover-up, and the way they get you is the cover-up. And this certificate is now the cover-up. So more power to you. That's obamacrimes.com, obamacrimes.com, and we'll see you next week, God willing. Okay?
You got it. Thank you.
See you soon. Now let's again shifting gears into finance here in our second hour. And this week we had the reactionary Republicans maturing a consensus that a short default would be a good thing, that the United States, on their watch, with their connivance and their complicity, with their responsibility, to drive the United States into national bankruptcy. It has never occurred. Don't listen to them in the form that they're talking about it. It has not happened. This is something quite new, and believe me, you don't want to find out what the results will be. You'll see that the U.S. federal budget is in some ways the basis of the world economy and continues to be. So newspaper articles Tuesday, Wednesday this week GOP mainstream thinks that a short default would be a good thing. Now, in the background, as we mentioned before, Stanley Druckenmiller, sometimes known as Drunkenmiller, Stanley Druckenmiller, a cohort of Soros. And remember, Soros and Druckenmiller are the guys who speculated to smash the British pound back in the days of the European exchange rate mechanism of 1992, when Soros did the equivalent of stealing, what was it, a 5-pound note or a 10-pound note from every man, woman, and child in the British Isles. Nice stuff. Druckenmiller is putting out the line to Republicans, the reactionaries are still eating this up, that a default would be a good thing, provided that it leads to those long-term genocidal cuts in the budget, right? Genocidal austerity against the American people is hard to get. This is a way to impose it under crisis conditions. Don't let that crisis go to waste, is what they're really saying. Same thing as Rahm Emanuel from the other side. If you go back to an old EIR, Executive Intelligence Review of 1995, you'll find an article by me showing that Druckenmiller was telling that same line to Domenici, Senator Pete Domenici in the Senate, back in 1995 when the budget question, the debt ceiling question, led to a confrontation between the reactionary Republicans and Clinton. Now, the funny thing, though, funny and ominous that has happened then, is the Chinese then came forward. As soon as they saw this thing about the emerging Republican consensus, that there would not be an increase in the debt ceiling, the Chinese delivered a new ultimatum to the United States. There's no other way to see this. It is a second ultimatum. First ultimatum, if you attack Pakistan, you're attacking China. Back off. This one, you go bankrupt, you default, you're playing with fire. Back off. Stop playing with fire. Stop playing with fire. Now, this comes from a delegated spokesperson. Again, this is done this is already a bit more energetic, right? This is not completely behind the scenes. This is public, and it's being delivered by a delegated spokesman, Chinese Central Bank advisor Li Daokui, Lidaokui, speaking at a conference in Beijing. Daokui delivered, this is semi-official and therefore official, the following statement, and I quote, "If a default happens, the Chinese government should have a consultation with the U.S. government. China can promise that we will not sell our holdings of U.S. debt, but the United States must also promise that you will not hurt our interests by guaranteeing the safety of our investment. I really worry about the risks of a U.S. debt default, which I think may lead to a decline in the dollar's value," unquote. Now, what does that mean? That the U.S. eats the losses if the dollar declines? Well, the dollar has been declining. This is the kind of territory you don't want to get in. But it reminds us, if you don't have an economic recovery program, you're on your way to becoming ethnographic material. And you better learn Chinese so you can hear the orders and follow the orders. And you better learn Chinese so you can be interviewed by the anthropologists that they'll send over to find out about this lunatic belief structure called the free market, free enterprise, and all the rest of that, which seems to have destroyed what used to be the industrial powerhouse of the world. Remember now, the Chinese are going to have an aircraft carrier soon, the first one, right? They bought an old Soviet keel of an aircraft carrier, and they're soon going to finish it up. So that was a very pointed warning to the lunatic Tea Party reactionary Republicans, the Druckenmillers. Senator Kyle says he wants $2.5 trillion of cuts over 10 years to get the debt ceiling increased, and that's what we've heard from McConnell, that's what we've heard from Boehner, and so forth. And beyond that warning from Li Daokui, the ultimatum, we can also point to a statement by a less official person who says the U.S. is already defaulting, and we'll get to that in a minute. A Chinese spokesman saying the U.S. is already defaulting. Back in a minute.